Hi, I'm Alex from Low Origin, and this is my 200SX. Now, I've had this car for what feels like forever. This is a bit like the 300ZX video. It's a big long story about how this car has owned me whilst I've attempted to own it. The 200 has been in my possession since 2010, I'm going to go with. And it was purely bought as a tool. And that sounds kind of lame, and it was kind of lame at the time, but I wanted to do something that made sense for me. And that in itself sounds kind of lame, but at the time, 2010, drift days were kind of few and far between. If you wanted to do drifting, it was either on the streets or it was at the BDC, and that was kind of it. You could do pod days, but I think I did 10 straight, or I think 8 or 9 straight pod days. And after a while, I was just like, there's only so many times you can do the same event. Anyway, so my intention, and bear in mind in 2010, I'd already owned the 300, and it had owned me, for about 4 years at this point. And I enjoyed driving it, and I enjoyed drifting it. And I'd taken it to BDC licensing days. Now, for those who were born in the past 20 years, licensing days were what you did to gain, well, obviously a license for the British Drift Championship. And I think I had a couple of whacks at it in that car. I think I passed on the 4th attempt. And I didn't do it in that car. I actually passed the license at semi-pro level in that car, which is Saul's car for, you can't see. It's up on the top of the ramp. It's on the ramp where it spends all of its life. Says me. Anyway, that car used to be owned by a guy called Tom Johnson, who very kindly lent me the car. And I used it to do the licensing day last minute, because the 300 obviously broke, as it did many, many times. And I think that time it was something stupid, like the power steering pump had failed, and it had a 2-stage speed sensor, and it had just got stuck on motorway speed, which meant the steering was very, very heavy, and then the pump just failed. Anyway, doesn't matter. Passed the license in the 200, and it was, I'm not going to say easier to drive than the 300. Now, both cars, the 300ZX and Tom's borrowed 200SX, were pretty much, they had minor lock mods. I don't think Tom's even had steering knuckles. The 300 certainly didn't. They had rack mods. And even though they were still in the same sort of state of modified for drifting, the 200 was just so dramatically so much more easier to drift, much more precise, felt light, nimble, well balanced, and having driven the 300 for so long, it was really quite, not eye-opening, but certainly was very impressive. So I came away from this drift day. I'd been awarded my semi-pro license, and I was pretty proud of the fact. I tried to do something, and with the help of all my mates and everyone else, I'd managed to achieve this thing. But I'd done it in a car I didn't own. So the problem here is, how do you go forwards from here? And this has been a problem for a lot of people in drifting, in competition drifting, because the car that you have fun with and that you want to enjoy, you want to drive on a regular basis, they try to turn it into a competition car, and it sort of detracts from the fun element of that car. So I kind of didn't want to do that. So at first I was going to sell the 300 and then buy a 200SX. And back in 2010, that was quite easy to do for not very much money. You had like 3 types of 200SX. You had a 200SX that was like 500 brake horsepower that would cost £10,000, and nobody built them. Or you had the middle of the road Horsham Stage 2A chipped S14, whatever, and it would have crap wheels and maybe some coilovers from Apex, and they would cost you about £3 grand. That was the maximum you were going to pay. It was going to be rusty, it was going to be fucked, but generally it was around the £3 grand mark. And then the third type of 200SX that you could buy was an MOT write-off by some lovely old dear who'd taken it for an MOT and it was written off due to copious amounts of rust. So I went for the middle of the road. A friend of mine was selling a green S14A for 3,000 quid. It had a blown gearbox and it had 18 by 9.5 ET20, I want to say Kwamis, but they're not. They're CR Kais, or they were at the time, CR Kais. I loved them, they were great. Nice square set, pretty much unmodified bodywork, fairly standard looking car really. It had Apexi coilovers, Apex coilovers, big difference. And didn't have any steering lock mods or anything like that. And that was the basis for what I was going to use very specifically as a tool to do the BDC. Because after all, if you enjoy drifting at that point in time, that was the only way you were going to do anything. Now bear in mind, in 2010, round the corner was Awesome Fest, which is about to be 10 years ago. Wow. Where's Awesome Fest 2, Phil? I mean, I bought my ticket. I bought the ticket about 10 years ago for Awesome Fest 2. Anyway, so that was the first, Awesome Fest was the first thing that was really like a fun event that wasn't a comp and wasn't pod. So obviously I took the car to that. But before I went there, I had to modify it to become a drift car. And obviously it had a blown gearbox, so I had to replace that. Now the car came with a gearbox in the boot. There's lots of 200SXs tend to have, weirdly. Spare gearbox in the boot. Fitted that, an Exceedi paddle clutch. And they were cheap at the time. They were like 300 quid, relatively cheap at the time. Fitted that and just drove it and had some fun. Awesome Fest was awesome. It was great. Rest in peace, Mallory Park. But that was really the start of, you know, making it a competition car and more purpose-built competition-based car. I painted it blue with a roller, very important. You know, the first thing you did in 2010 was you painted the car blue. I think we were probably in about 2011 at this point. Awesome Fest was 2011. So I painted it blue. I've got some Super Clarky knuckles from Mitch at Drift Garage and some rack spacers, and the car's transformed. It's same power. It was a Horsham 2A chip. Like, it's supposedly like 320 brake horsepower, but it was more of a, you know, guess your brake horsepower. And the lock mods really changed how you could drive it. Like, it would just cut knuckles, but you could really, I think more than anything, you could go much, much faster, and much faster, crucially, than I'd ever been in a drift car. Because you could just wind more lock on. Anyway, so obviously street stuff happened. We'll leave that there. That's when I met a lot of like-minded people in your general area, in and around Manchester, who were also into the same sort of thing. Now, they weren't into comps, and they were purely into doing street stuff, which is cool, it's fine, but with that comes huge amounts of anxiety. So I was really aiming to do as much comp stuff as possible. So with the lock mods, the paint, the wheels, what else did I do with the wheels? Oh, that was it. I put my first set of over fenders on. Now that was more out of the fact that the rear quarter had been stoved in, probably by doing something stupid. And oh, that was it. I destroyed one of the work wheels. Now back in 2011, getting hold of a CR Kai, a single CR Kai, wasn't going to happen. There was no Driftworks, well there was, but there was no Driftworks that was able to get you a single wheel. And you'd have to rely on Right Hand Drive Japan or one of the other importers, and it was going to be very expensive. So what did I do? I went and bought myself some rotors, pair of rotors, and they were all right. They looked all right. I painted them yellow, and they were all right. But that was really the basis of my first year at the BDC. Blue car, yellow wheels, 320 brake horsepower, a welded diff. It was actually a 4-1 welded diff that I'd bought off somebody I'd sold a car to. It doesn't really matter. But again, it's the first time I'd really changed diffs and realised that changing a diff and having a short ratio diff would make a car feel like it accelerated faster, even if it actually wasn't. Anyway, so I'm going into the first year of comps, and it's fantastic. It's everything I wanted it to be. It's nice and laid back. Everyone helps each other. Everyone is having a generally fantastic fucking time. It was brilliant. The first 2011 season was it was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Couldn't have gone better, really. I think at the end of that year, I think I came first in one of the events, or maybe second. First or second, I can't remember. Or maybe third. Clearly I can remember the year like it was yesterday. But yeah, it was generally a good year of drifting. I got loads of seat time, which people used to say, oh, you don't get a lot of seat time in comps, but there wasn't a huge amount of drivers. It was a weird time. People like Phil Morrison had bowed out. Had he bowed out at that point? No, he'd not bowed out at that point. But quite a few of the higher end drivers had sort of taken a year off. And generally, things were looking pretty good. And crucially, a lot of little drift days, that sounds stupid, but a lot of lower sort of practice days were coming about. A lot of T-side days were coming about. And the T-side days were fantastic. Like driving T-side, my voice is going. Drift days that were just practice days, like T-side were coming about, which was great. You could then just go to T-side and have some fun, you know, go on the West Track, the Full Hour, whatever. It was great. So we started doing more of those. 2011, 2012 season, I'd really tried to step things up. I think I bought what do they call it? The 2871R. It's the ball bearing version of the turbo. Absolute classic. I wanted bigger injectors, bigger turbo, would go faster. So I did it in completely the wrong order. I fitted the injectors and the fuel pump, the Walbro fuel pump, fitted the turbo, and then I drove 280 miles around England with my Niztune board on the passenger seat. In fact, Saul was on the passenger seat and the Nismo board was in the back. And then I turned up to Pro Tuner in Redditch, and I was going to get it mapped because I drove it everywhere. I didn't have a trailer, drove it everywhere. So pull up to Pro Tuner, and Greg goes, right, why have you driven here? Are you fucking stupid? And both me and Saul we still are stupid. And he said, well, you've washed the bores, the cylinders are now toast. Did a quick compression test, and I think I got low 7s and 6s bar across all. Well, in fact, it wasn't across all four. The main problem was that at least one of them, the back one, was really low, like 5. Like, how are you starting? Anyway, so I'd kind of ruined the engine a little bit, but not wanting to give up, I put these things on and found someone else to tune it. Someone who I won't mention the name, but someone who definitely shouldn't have tuned it because, my God, it was a mess. Anyway, so do 2012 drifting at competition. I think we do Knockhill, Teesside like multiple times, and then from there we did Liddon Hill a load of times, and it's like relatively big, fast tracks, things that I'd never driven at before. You know, bear in mind, I used to like messing around and then maybe doing Pod and the odd one. Then we did Silverstone as well. Silverstone was huge. That was really eye-opening. You know, you sit down with other drivers and you sign things and you act professional, and people are like, no way, these guys have just been on track, that's amazing. Like, yeah. I did just take a piss on the track though. Who is that like a regular thing? Did like F1 drivers piss on the track? Yeah, I don't know whether we're supposed to admit to that. Lots of people did. I'll drag everyone down with me, so I'm not alone. But yeah, things got bigger and better, and the BDC was seemingly getting bigger and better, and my car was seemingly getting faster and with better lock. That's when I bought I think the first set of Geomaster 2 knuckles, front and rear. And it meant that I could lower the car and keep decent geometry, and the car drove pretty damn well. And I used those knuckles for a very, very long time. They were great. 2013 crept up on us very, very quickly. A lot of my mates are now sort of, at this point, they're going to just practice days. People have sort of stopped doing the street stuff so much, sort of. And are now mainly doing practice days, and I'm trying to get to as many as possible. And I get to this point where trying to afford stuff, you've got like people who are struggling to afford to go to practice days, and I was too. And then you've got people who are paying sponsorship so you could do a competition. So it was really tough, because like I wasn't earning a lot of money back then. I was living in a council flat, and yeah, things were a struggle to get to events. So the competition side of things, where people would sponsor you to go to those events, made a lot more sense. You know, if a guy was paying for your tyres and your fuel and maybe a few other bits and bobs, you were more inclined to go to a competition to do that. Even though all your mates are going to practice days, it kind of made it a bit awkward. Not awkward, just somewhat frustrating. Anyway, 2013 creeps up, and it all becomes super serious. We get a major sponsor on board, Car Loan For You, who were Car Loan For You, a finance company for second-hand cars. If you want to buy a second-hand car, you'd go through them to get a loan. I think they were on Auto Trader at one point. They've now changed name to something else, which I can't remember. Either way, they paid for tyres, fuel, liveries, everything. And that's the first proper livery this car got. It was blue, white, and I think mine had yellow in it. This is a reoccurring theme. Matt had a 300ZX, and his was white, blue, and green. Joe Anker's, his was, I think it was silver, actually. Yeah, it was. Yeah, actually, because it actually carried over from the very first team, which was at the very end of the 2012 series, called Skid Row. So Skid Row was the very end of 2012, which then became Car Loan For You. So yeah, the point is they paid for a lot of stuff, made it much easier to drive. Also made us look more professional. They gave us gazebos, they gave us higher banners. It made us look really professional, and the point is, from the back of that, we got more sponsorship, so people would see us as a professional team. Suddenly, you know, this messing around on the street and going to the odd practice day became much more serious. And there was actual money involved. People were inviting us to Jap Fest, which a lot of people get invited to Jap Fest, but it was, you know, it was a relatively big thing for, you know, the team to be invited to go there and not to have to pay for things, not to have to pay for certain events as well. That was great. Really enjoyed that. And the season just went from strength to strength. Between me, Matt, and Joe, we, constructors-wise, won the entire thing. We won the BDC, basically. I've said that before now, and everyone goes, "Oh my God, shut the fuck up about winning the BDC." I was proud of it. It was, you know, it was three absolutely broke boys going and doing the national competition and winning it. It was very unlikely and kind of funny. You know, we may have been dragged up by our fucking bootstraps to look professional, but we certainly weren't as professional as we looked. That was really I'm going to say the apex, the pinnacle of competition driving for us. Because after that, 2014, weird stuff happened. We got introduced to a company who made lots and lots of promises, who basically asked us to leave our current sponsor, Colin For You, and move on to them. I'm not going to mention their name. And the long and short of it is that deal disappeared, and so did the person involved in those deals, also disappeared at crucial points where bills needed to be paid. Which sounds kind of lame, but when you've had a company do fabrication work for you on the basis that you're this professional team that's just won the BDC, and they take you as being, yeah, well, we're going to get paid for this job because they've got sponsors, and the sponsors have said that this is going to happen, and blah, 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 blah. And then the sponsors just disappear pretty much overnight, left us in a bit of a mess. Anyway, the 2014 season, we had already put the second livery on the car, so we were convinced to take the old livery off, all three cars, and put the new livery on, which was black with a yellow jagged line down the side with a bit of silver in it and chrome and stuff. And it was really the first time we'd been allowed to design a livery. And I say we, it wasn't we at all. It was Alistair from Street Track Live. He designed it. He said, I said, just do something that looks cool and, you know, Japanese inspired or whatever. And he did, looked great. And we put that on the car, and then that sponsor then disappeared, and we were left with bills that we had to pay, which is fine, we paid them, but it really made that season difficult to do anything decent in. We had no tyres, we had no fuel, we had nothing paid for. The only help we got was from Race Day Developments with Howell and Hayden, and they really pulled us out of the shit, and forever grateful for them doing that. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And they are the reason that I don't think, we would have probably packed a lot of stuff in that year if it wasn't for them. And I might not even be here doing this now if it wasn't for them. But they got us out of the shit, and they helped us massively. And I think halfway through the year, we then got a tyre sponsor, and we trundled through the year, and it was all right, but we barely placed, sort of. But the reality was, our heart wasn't in it. We just had a really crap time. And that was pretty much the end of that team. So the Skid Row team that started in 2012 disbanded at the end of 2014 with, things weren't terrible, but we were all just done. It had been extremely stressful. We felt we'd let a lot of people down, and we were just generally struggling. Now at that point, I think I was pretty much done with competition, or at least taking competition seriously. The 200 was tired, really tired. It was so tired. I think between me and Max and everyone at Bolly, we built our first forged SR20. And I think it had cost a grand total of about 1,300 quid in parts, using the low compression SR20 that I'd ruined by doing multiple years of competition in a car that had very, very poor compression. So we built the first forged engine, and it was great. It had, I think when we first turned it over, it had 11 bar, there or thereabouts. Yeah, it was really healthy, strong across all four. Took it for mapping, came back with, we got a new turbo. So Owen Developments had sponsored us in 2013 and gave us all turbos, but we didn't do anything with them because we all had crap engines. So we kept them until we had good engines, or built good engines. So I had this turbo right there, a 3073 HDA RS, or whatever ridiculous name it had. And we slapped that on, and I think it did about 400 brake horsepower, and I thought, yep, that'll do. That's perfect. Don't need any more than that. All I want to do now is go and have fun with my friends, because I basically spent the past couple of years just doing comps and taking things quite seriously, whilst all my friends were doing practice days and seemingly having a lot more fun, but costing a lot more money, because of course it was their money and not sponsors' money. And yeah. So, where are we up to? 2015. A few like-minded people had started a Facebook group called UKATEN, or UKI Katen, which was basically just sharing Japanese-inspired cars. And that then became, wasn't a team as such, but it was certainly, you know, like paint your cars the same colour. So we did, we all painted our cars black. And then we thought, it'd be cool if we put our own livery on them. Yeah, a guy called Vincent, he did the first, what I would say was like the first, I don't want to say good livery because that's unfair on the one that Ali did, because it was good, but I really liked the one that Vincent did. It was really, really good. I really liked that. I'd have probably kept the car like that for good. Now, before that livery got applied, we'd all painted our cars black. We were all lads. We were all going to go to Final Boss 2014, 2015. And there was a lot of good vibes. Lads doing lads things at events, practice days, having fun. It's really good. Now at that point, I'd got the VSXXs. I can't even fucking say it. The VSXXs, the work VSXXs. I was sick and tired of having a set of rotors on the back of the car, that I then spent a lot of money on VSXXs, although not as much as I could have done if I'd have got them retail. Thank you, Driftworks. They were fantastic. I don't fucking care. They're a timeless wheel. I don't care if they're played out. They are a fucking timeless design. They were beautiful. Incredible spec. I think the fronts were 18 by 10.5 ET minus 23. And the rears, of which I had 4 of, were 18 by 11, and the offset was minus 27, I think. And the rears, I'd spec them with what Work were lovingly referring to as VIP dish. Real nice. I really fucking miss those wheels. I honestly can't tell you why I sold them. They were just lying around. They're quite big and bulky. That's a terrible excuse, isn't it? I should have kept them. Fuck. Anyway. So the VSXXs had turned up, and suddenly my car in the UK was the only drift car that was being used the way I used it, beating the hell out of it, and had these cool, fancy, expensive wheels. So subsequently it got a lot of attention in the UK, but also around the world. I think there was a couple of viral videos that went around from that year. One from Street Track Life, which was at Three Sisters. That was when it had the black Uras kit prior to the Vincent Milley livery, and another one as well, which I can't remember. Anyway. This got UKATEN, or UKI Katen, lots and lots of followers on Facebook and on Instagram, and it was great. It was all good. It wasn't ours, but it was cool. It was a lot of fun, and you know, doing stuff and doing cool stuff with your friends, load of fun. Then came the Great Divide. It's not a great divide. It was just a lot. Some people wanted to paint the cars black again. Some people just didn't want to do drifting anymore because drift cars suddenly started creeping up in price. You know, some people were having to pay £5,000 for a Rope S14. Imagine that. That was deemed quite expensive. Some people wanted to paint them black. Some people wanted to paint them yellow, and I was one of the people who wanted to paint the car yellow. So I painted my car yellow. that led us into the 2016 year. So I'm still doing the odd comp, and I'm doing mainly practice days with the lads. And I painted the car yellow. The year previously, Dan Joyce had a PS13, fucking beautiful car, cloisters and just beautiful. And we had the same livery, and we'd become Team Yucatan or UK Yucatan. And I'd met Dan Joyce probably a couple of years previously in a fantastic, highly legal, totally legal way, completely legal way. I'd met him crashing up a roundabout on a track. And everyone was like, oh my God, that's Dan Joyce from Dirty Sanchez. That's never going to end. I'll be honest, for the first maybe hour of drifting with him, I wasn't sure whether he was or wasn't the Dan Joyce from Dirty Sanchez. Anyway, 2016's yellow with, I think it was blue first. It was a blue livery, which is just flames down the side. Lovely livery, real simplistic. Probably one of my favourites. Yeah, real basic. So that was me, Dan, and now Saul. Saul had painted his car yellow, because lots of us did, you know, because yellow is a fucking good colour. And he also put a livery on his car. And that's fine. I don't think he did a lot of driving that year. I do know he crashed up the Driftland bank. So the yellow livery, I think, did we do a comp that year? Maybe we did, but we had no intention of actually trying at the comp. I think we did a final boss. We did just lots and lots of cool events with your mates and had fun. It was great. Then, what came after the yellow? Oh yeah, then we did 2017, I got married, and the second livery went on, and it was it was exactly the same livery. 2017, did the entire BDC, and I did try. I know, I can remember the time that I tried. It was a Teesside, and it was behind Martin Richards, and I qualified 33 out of 32, and then obviously someone's shit broke, so I qualified by default. Which meant I then had to go up against Martin Richards. Now, the engine was now forged, it had 420 Blaze It horsepower, it was fucking sick. It was not the 600 plus brake horsepower that Skyline had. Not that it matters, but that was probably the only time I tried. That sounds terrible. But I remember flying down in the lead position and managed to get nice and high up the bank, and I just fucking stayed there. Nice, consistent run. Held it all the way around, and out the end, it was a pretty much a flawless. I didn't fuck up. It was a good run. Martin Richards subsequently pinned me the entire way round. It looked beautiful. And then it came to do the chase run, and I've got Martin next to me, and I fly in, and I'm absolutely on him. I'm probably more on him than I've ever been to anyone else ever. And I stick to him, and then he leaves. He leaves, completely leaves, and I'm like, yes, fantastic, and then he just goes, bye. And I just feel like I'm just not moving. I remember coming out of the end of the main bank, and he'd already started doing the S's, the hairpins. And I was like, fuck. Competition is like, it's now getting serious. It's been serious for a while, but like at that point, it's the first time I'd properly tried against something and someone who was like actually good, and the car was really good. You know, not just another one of me in 2013, just getting through by default or being a bit lucky. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. I think I really need to, if I'm going to continue with this car, which let's face it, I'm going to, I'd need to make this fucking quick, and I'd need to raise it. I'd need to make it slightly more higher, maybe, in order to be more competitive. And that wasn't going to happen at all. Now, in 2017, Low Origin became a thing. And it was me, Dan, primarily me and Dan, and then Saul then became the threesome. And it was and is great. No real pressure. In fact, no pressure really to do anything. Do what the fuck you want. Have fun, smash around, try not to kill anyone. 2018 became mental. Like proper mental. Like, you know when people say, oh my God, it was mental. It was really fucking mental. It was by far and away, everything felt like it accelerated. Like, our Instagram went from having like 2,000 or 3,000 followers to like 20,000 followers in like a very short space of time. Wasn't ready for that, hadn't planned it, but it just happened. We decided collectively that we wanted to, I say collectively, it was me and Dan, we went down to a place in Sheffield called, oh my God, it was written on the car, Custom Paints, Custom Colours, Custom Paints, probably Custom Paints, I think it's Custom Paints. Really good. Anyway, we put lots and lots of colours together and we were like, yellow, pink, purple made the most sense. It looked good. Well, it looked good on the table when we put the little colour things next to each other. So they were going to look good IRL on the car. So we painted the fade. Granted, with the cars, with no livery, the fade looks a bit weird. But then we had Josh at Graphics D design the first fade livery, which is the one that everyone copied. Really liked that livery. It was great, just like flame effects with like faded pinks and purples and yellows in it. It was fantastic. It was the first year we'd managed to have all the sponsors agree to having all their logos in the same colours, or same colour styles. Next Level in Poland in 2018 was mental. It's the first time the car had been out of the country. That's a fucking lie. It had actually been out of the country in 2014 to Vartry in France with Ali to drift at Drift Party, which was fantastic. But I completely forgot about that. Poland was really, really eye-opening because we'd never experienced anything like it before. Fuck me, my throat is as dry as fucking flip-flop. Driving solidly for 23 hours through 5 countries is legitimately AIDS. Like, horrendous, horrible, just the worst. Just like your skin is crawling, you feel like you've got brain damage. Like, I mean it. Like, if you think you can drive to Next Level, if eventually we ever get to Next Level, the next one, it is not advisable to try and attempt to do it in one go. My God, you will end up with actual brain damage. We get there, we get to the hotels, everything's arranged for us. We turn up at the track, which is in Gdansk, and everyone there is just, I hate using the word vibe because it's so like, sick vibe, bro. But it was such an amazing vibe. Everyone there was fucking happy as fuck. There was a crowd there, a crowd that were clapping, cheering, shouting and excited. There was an open pit where people would just come over and ask you to sign t-shirts. I mean, bear in mind, this isn't a competition. This is just cool cars turning up from around the world and going to an event that at this point was tried and tested, but we'd not been there before now. And Hurt from Hoonigan, Hurt was there. Like, that was a weird thing to just be involved in that. Like, the video that they put up just accelerated our being on the internet massively. I think we ended up at like something stupid like 30,000 followers in like an extremely short space of time. And I stupidly, in fact, not stupidly, but I'd mentioned that we did these Ganador visors. We sold them in the shop, because we had a shop at this point for Low Origin. And the shop had like 5 items in it, you know, because 5 items were what you could sell for free on Big Cartel. So, you know, we had 5 items, like 4 stickers and some Ganador visors. And then I jokingly say in the video, like, oh, you get these Ganador visors in the shop. And then they leave it in the video, and it's then seen by like a couple 100,000 people in America, and it cripples the shop to the extent where I couldn't even log in to see how many we'd sold. And I think we'd sold something like getting close to 1,000. And I think I had 5. It doesn't matter. The point was, we weren't ready for how that event went. I don't think anyone was. We met some incredible people. Ty Jeffries, what a fucking guy. Like, just what a fucking guy. There were so many people that we did meet there, but like, Ty stood out as being like this energy that just, I don't know, he was absolutely the right person, the right place, the right time, and just made the experience. And he was just part of Oak Tree Outlaws, and he was filming most things, and he was just kicking it a bit, you know, just the entire event was just incredible. And people who weren't there, you know, it's like, you must be fucking sick and tired of people going, man, Next Level was fucking sick, bro. It was just so fucking good. It was the best. Yeah, it was the fucking best. But man, it really was the fucking best. We were meant to go the following year, 2019. We changed livery again. Really liked the 2019 livery. It was fantastic. Looked great. I can't fault it. A really hard livery to follow up. Now, bear in mind, throughout all of this time, I have crashed this into people. People have crashed into me. I've done 3 forged engines. I've blown up the first of the forged engines at Three Sisters in 2015. Vac pipe fell off the fuel pressure regulator. This car is getting very tired at this point. 2019, we're really sticking stuff. You know, the livery is holding a great deal of this car together. And my God, at that point, did it need some work. But the 2019 season, I think we had Danny join us at that point. Danny Wyman in his PS13. So we had a full house, nearly. S14, 14A, S15 and PS13. And it really sad because throughout the whole of the 2019 season, we never ever got all 4 cars on track, or even at the same event. I don't know how it happened. In hindsight, massively take that for granted, because bear in mind, 2020 was nothing, and 2021 has so far been just fuck all. So the fact that we never got that opportunity, and we just kind of took it for granted, because I presumed that Danny would be with us for, if not ever, then for at least a long time. And I presumed that we would be drifting the following year, and therefore would have a better chance at, you know, getting all 4 cars on track. But alas, it did not happen. Here we are, halfway through 2021. We've done no fucking driving, really. Little bits here and there. Danny is now left. He's now gone on to do other stuff. He's gone on to do more comps, to be fair, and he looked good doing comps. The car looks great. The wheels look great. It could be lower. Couldn't we all? But yeah, generally, I'd like to think that moving forwards, 2022, hopefully we get to do some fucking drifting. We have an event that we have organised. Probably not supposed to mention, but I don't really care anymore because it's been in the fucking pipeline for the past fucking 2 years. Low Origin event where, you know, cool low cars come to drift at Driftland and have fun. That was meant to happen 2 years ago. I'm pretty certain we've paid for it and it's all ready to go. It's just, you know, set a date. Come on, Boris. Come on, you can do this. Yeah, moving forwards, it'd be great to think there is a future where me, Dan, Saul, and now Jamie in an S13 will get onto a track and we'll do some drifting again and we'll have some fun, just like the good old days. And we'll finally fucking have some fun again. Because I think that's what this car, for me, has always been about. Fundamentally, at its core, it was fun. And I didn't buy it to have fun in. I stupidly thought I was buying it as a tool to do competitions and to be successful. And it wasn't. It was something to go and have real good fun with your mates. And short of wrapping it around a fucking tree or setting it on fire, throwing it on its roof. I mean, even if I threw it on its roof, I could probably try and convince somebody somewhere to put another roof on it. But anyway, that has been the story of me owning this car. Or should I say the car owning me? Fucking idiot.